What's up, everybody? So excited to be here with you and sharing this video with you. My name is Chambliss. I am the Youth Alive missionary here in Arizona, and I want to share with you some ideas when it comes to reaching our campuses. I was a youth pastor just like you guys, and we all have big dreams of reaching our schools, don't we? And a lot of times we have no idea how to go about doing that. So over the next few minutes, I just want to share with you some practical tips and some hopefully important wisdom for you. And together we can go about reaching the schools here in Arizona. And why this is so important and I'm so passionate about this is because I fully believe that there is no greater mission field in our lives than our local schools, and it's a huge opportunity that God has put right in front of us, and I want to do everything that I can to help every single student and youth pastor that I can in this state to reach their campuses. And so I want to share with you really quick the vision of Youth Alive, and then we'll get right into it. And so if you were at Youth Convention, you heard this, but I'll say it again here, is that over the next 5 years through Youth Alive, we want to see a student and a leader raised up to reach all 1,979 middle schools and from the bottom of my heart, my wife and I, we pray for you regularly, and we so believe in you and your students. And we know whether you're in the rural parts of Arizona or you're in the urban parts or the suburban parts, God's got a huge plan for you in your student ministry and your schools. So anyway, let's get right into it. So really quick, I want to open up with two roadblocks that I think oftentimes will prevent us from getting into our schools. And for me, when I was the youth pastor and I was first starting into it, the biggest things that kept me from making any movements was, number one, I didn't know what to do. Here I am, a youth pastor at a small church, small youth group, and what am I going to do? Like, how do I get in there? Or we have this common misconception that schools are just closed and there's no way in. It's not going to happen. They're against you. Society's against Christianity. It's just not going to happen. And so we get crippled and stopped by that. We don't do anything. And so I think that's something that's hugely does not work in our favor when we have that mindset of we just don't know what to do, and so we don't do anything. And the second thing I think is this: we're intimidated. I don't know about you, but coming out of college as a 21-year-old, I'm super intimidated by a principal who's got his master's or a PhD and being like, "Hey, I'm 21, but I want to help you make your school better." That's just really intimidating. And so I want to hopefully pull back some discouragement and some intimidation as we look at these 4 ideas that I want to give you today. And hopefully you'll know a little bit of what to do, and maybe you'll be a little bit less intimidated. So I want to share 4 things with you, and I pray that it helps you. So number 1 would be this. If you want to make a difference on your campus, you want to reach your schools for Jesus, number 1 is you just got to pray. I'm a firm believer that every single battle is won in prayer. And if you believe that there is a spiritual battle going on for souls, we got to pray. How often do we challenge our students to pray and for their friends and for lost people? And so as youth pastors, why don't we do the same thing and we begin to call upon God for our city? In Matthew chapter 7 says this: "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you." And verse 8 says, "For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened." So I want to say this to you. What kind of prayers are you praying for your campus? You know, doors open that would never open when you pray. Also, not just that, but ideas. There's been many times where I've been up against an insurmountable goal that I've been trying to reach, and I didn't know what to do, and I just began to pray diligently, daily, and through praying and meditating and reading my Bible, ideas and vision and creativity would start to come to my mind, and also boldness. I am much more bold when I have had my time alone with God before I start my day. I can go into a place that would be really intimidating otherwise when I've prayed. But when I haven't prayed, I'm substantially more afraid of people who look like they're more put together or have it all figured out more so than me. So I really challenge you, what are you asking God for? What are you seeking? And keep knocking on that door. Keep knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking, and be persistent for your schools. So that's the first thing. We can do some things on our own, but we can do a lot more when we've prayed. So I challenge you to really pray for your campuses. And the second thing would be this, presence. You got to be present. You know, my old pastor would always say, you've got to be present to win. And what I mean by that is this. If you want to be known in your school, you got to be at your schools. And so for me, what that looked like when I was a youth pastor was I would find areas where my students were, either before school, during school, if it was possible, or after school. I would do my best to be at their events with them. And so what that looked like would be this. I had a student who went to a thing called Fields of Faith after school one day. And I'd been doing a big push in our youth group about reaching your schools. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to go with him to this thing tonight. And was it a little uncomfortable? Yes, because I was the only adult there. And there was teenagers everywhere. And they thought I was a teenager. But I had a beard. So I guess teenagers have beards. It's okay. So I went, and I didn't just go there to just be there. Granted, I was there to meet students, and that was great. But I also went there to maximize my time, and I looked around me at the faculty members and the teachers that were there. So what I did is, after I was hanging out with the kids for a little while, I asked my student, hey, who's in charge here? And he pointed out the teacher that was in charge. I went and met that teacher, and then I went and met the supervisor of the athletics, which is their baseball coach. I met him, and I got his phone number. And I began to just start texting him every so often and telling him I was praying for him and his students, asking how can I be a part, how can I do anything for him. And by the grace of God, over a period of time, God allowed me, through just being present, to have an audience with his students. And I was able to teach and coach his students that he was coaching. It was an awesome thing. Another thing would be this. A great way to be on campus is go to things like See You at the Pole in the morning. Pray with your student in the morning. And then I would say something as simple as this. Walk your student to the gate, pray for him, say, hey, have a great day. And do something as simple as this. Go into the administrative office, have a box of donuts with you. Go into the office, meet all the ladies there in the office. Because I'll tell you what, if you can win the ladies at the office, that's a great in right there. So go in the office, meet people there, share your heart with them. But then also, don't just go in and have this, hey, I'm going to do great things and I want to see God do great things on your campus, but then never show back up. The greatest way you are going to make a difference and make an impact is longevity. You would be surprised how many schools have pastors and youth leaders come in and they are super passionate for like a day or a week, but then they disappear. And you can do very little with that. So I would really challenge you, if you are making an headway, if you're getting momentum in a school, stay present. You gotta be present to win. For administrators, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. They got a lot of busyness and a lot of crazy schedules. So if you want to be known in their worlds, you gotta be present in their worlds and building relationships with them. So that leads me to my next point would be this. Number 3 would be to be a resource. You got to be a resource to them. I would really challenge you with this thought here is, oftentimes, especially as young men and women who are just pumped to see students reach for Jesus, we get this idea that I got to go into the school and I got to preach Jesus all the time. And while that's great, yeah, and if you can speak at the school, awesome. If God allows you that opportunity, awesome. That's a great thing. It's a great thing to shoot for. But what if instead of trying to be a voice to your school, you first tried to be a resource to your school? So I'll share this with you. There's a great youth pastor, Isaiah Sanchez. He's an awesome youth pastor out in Wickenburg, and he's done a great job as an example of this. He was sharing with me once that he began to talk to the 8th grade class committee. And for their meetings, what he would do is he would go in and he would set up and tear down for the meetings. He would set up tables, set up chairs, clean them off when they were done, and then put the tables and the chairs back up. And over time, he found opportunities to make himself available. And so they had a dance coming up. And so he said to them, hey, you need a DJ? You guys don't have much money. I'll do it for free. And they're like, okay, cool. And so here's a youth pastor in a school dance. Like, who doesn't want that? I would jump at that opportunity. So I can be a youth pastor and dance and hang out and have a good old time and meet a bunch of 8th grade students. Heck yes. And so he did that and kept getting more and more opportunity to serve. And then he told me this, which was so huge. The principal of the school is now, in his own words, begging him for a campus club. And they're like, we need a Bible club. We need what you guys have. And like, that's awesome. And one thing that Isaiah told me is, I never went in trying to preach. I just wanted to make myself available to them and be a resource and serve them however I can. And so, one, he prays for his school. He's present at his school. And he's a resource to his school. So there's 3 thoughts right there that I think we could close up shop right now and it would be all good. But the 4th thing would be this. Train your students. You know, because here's the thing. Especially if you are a youth pastor in the valley, there's a million schools and there's one of you. It's going to be really difficult to reach a lot of schools with just one youth pastor or 2 youth pastors even. Maybe your wife or your husband, you guys are teamed together and you go out, and that's great. But you still have a lot of schools to reach. So I would say your best way to maximize is to train your students on what they believe, why they believe it, and teach them how to live it out. And I would say a good question to ask yourself, if your students are able to be campus missionaries, a good way to gauge that would be to ask this question: could your students share their faith without your help? If they can, then you did a good job in training them. So if a student doesn't need you to share what they believe, why they believe it, and aren't afraid to live it out, then I think you've done a really, really great job. So I would say to begin to train your students on how to have one-on-one gospel conversations. That's going to be one of your biggest ways to get into that school. I think a huge problem is sometimes we overthink what reaching our campus looks like, and we think that I've got to go in, I've got to do everything. But listen, your students are there 5 days a week. We're not. And so you train them, they do the jobs, and then by the grace of God, He'll give us an opportunity to go in there and share as well. And so I have a student, I had a student in our youth group. His name was Ronald. Great dude. Love that kid with all my heart. We began to push students to not just say they're a Christian and say they want people to know Jesus and not just invite people to church, but to do something about it and own it. Because here's the deal, like the gospel is not just on the youth pastor, it's them. They're personally responsible for it. And so we begin to push them and encourage them. And so what Ronald began to do is he thought to himself, I've got to do something. And so listen, this is so simple, but what he began to do is he would take his Bible to school with him every day. And he would say, hey, while we eat, I want all of you guys to come read the Bible with me. And he got a group of 5 kids to start, and they would sit around their table and they would just read the Bible together. They read through Matthew, and they would invite me, and I got to sit with them several weeks in a row as he just walked several kids through the Bible. And sometimes there's one kid. Sometimes it was just me and him. Other times there'd be 5 or 6 kids, but there's always people there. And it was an awesome experience because I got to show him that, listen, through you taking the responsibility on yourself and not just letting it be me, you are able to get students who don't have Bibles and who wouldn't otherwise be doing this to read Scripture and know what Jesus says about them. And by the grace of God, I got to buy them Bibles. But it started when I trained up a student to do the work of the ministry, and I just got to be a resource to my student and these other students. And by the grace of God, they started coming to our youth group, and they gave their hearts to Jesus, and now they're still living for Christ, which is awesome. So I really say that to encourage you. Find your students who feel called to reach people, and really start to push and encourage and resource and train them, because that is going to be a great way that you will reach your campus. Because you love your students, your fingerprint is on them. Therefore, when they make a difference in their school, your fingerprint is on the school. So, AZ Youth Pastors, I love you guys. I'm so excited for this year, what God's going to do. And I want to be a resource to you however I can. So I'm going to give you a website really quick and my email so you can contact me. And if there's anything you need, please let me know. I want to be a help to you. So the first would be this. For all Youth Alive resources, you can go to youth.ag.org/Youth Alive. And right there, you'll have all of the resources that you would possibly need. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can find me on social media. But here's my email. It's Chambliss, so that's CCHAMBLISS @azag.org. I love you guys. Look forward to hearing from you.